Hello everyone, it's time for a live look at the astrology. My name is Katie Sweetman, and this is your look at the astrology for September 15th through 21st, 2025. So we have an eclipse this week. It's an eclipse. It's been eclipse season for a little bit, pretty much since we had that new moon back on August 23rd. Eclipses make things a little bit strange. I don't know what you're feeling. Today kind of went off the rails for me, and I was like, it's it's going to be a solar eclipse in a few days, so perhaps I'm not surprised. But when there's an eclipse, it just means that, at least with a solar eclipse, one stage is preparing for the next stage. It's like the curtain has come down on one act, and we are anticipating something new, and it might be a completely new scene, and it might be a completely new stage set when that curtain comes up. So yeah, we got a lot to talk about. For those that are watching me live, as always, say hello. It's always great to see familiar faces, and I know that we're an international audience, and my Sag rising gets to enjoy traveling through you all. But for those that don't know who I am, my name is Katie Sweetman, and I'm an astrologer and psychic medium located here in the rolling hills of Central Maryland. And every week we gather live to look at the astrology. You hear me say it every week. The astrology is 50%. You are the other 50%. Seems like we really got to be on our side of things, our 50% these days, because everything is so up and down. Let's dive into eclipses. Now, this is something that we've been talking about for a few weeks, and even though I don't love eclipses, but as an astrologer, I love eclipses in the sense that they really they mark the major milestones of our lives. And I know that eclipses have a reputation for events and sometimes turns, sort of the wheel of fortune can go in a different direction. But I was actually this weekend, it was a Gemini moon. So we were a week off of that Pisces lunar eclipse on September 7th. And I rediscovered something, like it was like a book that I started to write back in 2024. And I was like, hang on, what happened to this? This is good. And I looked at the date stamp, and it said May of 2024. And that was like a month before I moved. It was a month before some other things. And so I think it just kind of fell on the back burner, and then fell behind the stove, and then, and so forth. And I looked at the astrology, meaning like I have an app that tells me where the planets are at any particular moment. I was like, oh, look, the moon's at 15 Gemini. We had that eclipse was at 15 Pisces, so this is what's called a square. Pisces and Gemini are immutable signs. And I just sort of made that little chuckle to myself. I was like, oh, this is part of the eclipse for me. It's not to say that this is the totality of the eclipse, but then my, astrologer brain started to go. And I was like, oh, 15 Pisces is my third house by Plastis. So that makes sense. Like returning maybe, with Saturn back in Pisces, returning back to something that I started to write in 2024. So that's just an example of how eclipses are really moving the narrative of our lives. They can mark major turning points, major events. They can, even so simply as discovering a manuscript that you started writing a year before. And that can say, well, hey, maybe it's time to focus on this. Maybe it's time to prioritize this part of your life. And depending on where Virgo Pisces are in your astrology, it will illuminate different facets of your life. Now, if you only know your sun sign, which is fine, do begin to realize that your life is an expression of all 12 signs of the zodiac. So the sun is just in one sign of the zodiac. And that part of our chart, not where the sun is, but where Virgo Pisces is, that area is seeing a lot of shifts and change. It could be your third, it could be voice, communication, it could be your ninth, what you believe in, what you stand for, publishing, storytelling, faith. It could be relationships. It could be career, for example. So this is why it's really important not just to look at this eclipse as sort of just a moment in time, but really a part of the narrative and the fabric of your life. These eclipses, the ones in Virgo Pisces, will be from about 2024. So we had our first eclipse on September 17th of 2024. Our last eclipse is a lunar eclipse in Virgo. I think it's like very early in the sign. And this is February of 2027. Yes, February 2027. So that's a couple of years. Wait, that's not a couple of years from now. Wait, hang on. That's a year and a half from now. That's kind of weird to say that February 2027 is a year and a half from now. But wow. Anyway, here we are. It's September. So to look at what is going on as part of a larger narrative. The last time we had eclipses in Virgo Pisces was 2016, 2017. Before that was 2006, 2007. Before that was 1996. I think it was actually 1997, 1998. I can keep going back every 9 to 10 years. So when we start to look at your life from a much bigger vantage point, it opens up a larger narrative and you can begin to connect the dots. So for me as an astrologer, I'm not about like, one and done. I'm not about like just what's happening in 2025. Like, how does this connect? How does this open up a story that will take us into 2026, for example? How do I see, let's say, threads or reflections or connections to something that's going on in my life right now in, let's say, 2016, 2017, or 2006, 2007. I could keep going back. So Virgo and Pisces, particularly Virgo, but Virgo Pisces will be our priority for the next 6 months, because eclipses work in 6-month chapters. We're going to go roughly from the 21st of September, 21st, 22nd, depending on where you are in the world. My side of the world is September 21st. I think for Europe and maybe more like Asia and Australia, it's going to be on September 22nd. So roughly from September 21st, 22nd to roughly February 17th of 2026, because that is when the next solar eclipse is. Now that eclipse will be in Aquarius. That is a different conversation for a different time, but it's for us to know that it's like we open up this stage, this lens, this space that we will collectively and personally be in for the next 6 months. And we will live that stage of our life, the next 6 months, through the lens of Virgo and Pisces. It's really important in your own time. Side note, the zodiac is a wheel of archetypes. It's the wheel of life. Everything that happens in life happens somewhere in the zodiac. That said, Virgo Pisces, they are archetypes. They are energies. Even if you're saying, but I hate Virgos, or I don't have anything in Virgo, why is this important? Virgo is an archetype and an energy. It is the 6th sign of the zodiac. Every year at the end of August in the tropical astrology system, the sun gets into Virgo throughout the first few weeks of September. That is our collective time to turn towards the archetype of Virgo. Now, Virgo is an earth sign. It is the 2nd earth sign. It represents the practicalities, the duties, the day-to-day details of life. It's also health and wellness. It's how we take care of ourselves, how we take care of our bodies. It's our sense of precision about ourselves, precision about our work, our attention to details. And yeah, I love Virgo too, even though I'm not a Virgo, but I was born with Saturn in Virgo and a North Node in Virgo. So my joke is that Virgo makes the world go round. If we didn't inhabit the Virgo energy and archetype, we wouldn't get anything done. We wouldn't have a sense of wanting to make ourselves a better version of ourselves. We wouldn't pay attention to the details. We wouldn't think about, let's say, the effects on our choices, on how that changes our lives, for example. Virgo and Pisces, these are what are called the helping and healing signs. And these two signs help us to open up to the world, to think about other people, to strive to be of service. whether it is earthly service with Virgo, whether it is spiritual service with Pisces. Pisces is callings, particularly higher callings. Certainly we can all, over the next 6 months, find our calling. What do we feel called to do? But that said, really sit with what is your relationship with the Virgo archetype. If you have a knee-jerk reaction to the Virgo archetype, sit with it, reflect, meditate, journal, because with the Virgo new moon solar eclipse, particularly with the eclipse making an opposition to Saturn, it says that over the next 6 months, we also have to face off with Saturn. Saturn symbolically represents our ability to grow, mature, to make responsible choices and decisions, to become not just better versions of ourselves, but to step into some sort of greater role. Now, there is the side of Saturn that is, what do you grow up to become? Do you become somebody who's a leader, an authority, or this or that? And then there's the side of Saturn that's also lessons. Saturn represents completion. It takes 29 years to go through the zodiac. There are 29 degrees in each zodiac sign. The lunar month, 29 days. You sort of see these connections all over the place in astrology. And Saturn reminds us that our time on this earth, it is to build something. It is to become something. Just become you. Don't become something that you think you should be or what other people think you should be. Just become you. But Saturn is also Saturn, and over the next 6 months, we are collectively and individually occupying a space where Saturn is saying, do better. And maybe you're like, okay, Saturn, I'm taking the demand and I'm going to do better. I'm going to raise myself up. I'm going to work harder. And then sometimes, not sometimes, but a lot of times, if we do the work, Saturn rewards us. We get the promotion, we get the recognition. But I don't think we're supposed to ultimately, especially with Saturn Pisces, do Saturn for our ego. It's not for the recognition. It's not for the promotion. It's to know that you have spent your time doing what you need to do. For some of us, the Saturn opposition will draw a line on something, because Saturn shows us our limits and our boundaries, whether we need to have limits and boundaries or whether something has come to its conclusion. We can't take it beyond this point. So it's a pretty, and I know you all have been around here long enough to know that I love Saturn, but Saturn is still Saturn. It's still hard work. It's still accountability. It's still authority. It's still making sure that everything is in its right place. But it's for all of us to sort of put in the back of our minds over the next 6 months to do Saturn from a place of out of love. Love for yourself, love for your life, love for others, love for the world around you. And if we're doing it because we're sort of caught in the trap of perfection, then Saturn will run us into the ground, because that's when Saturn becomes a very hard version of Saturn. That said, Pisces, Saturn's back in Pisces. It's in Pisces until February 13th. And I've said this before, it's worth saying again, that Saturn in Pisces, I think it's one of the harder Saturns to have, because if Saturn represents the things that we need to learn, the things that we need to become, Pisces, in its highest of its highs, is transcendence. I need to transcend myself. I need to transcend my ego, my suffering, my pain, the things that I'm still holding on to. Now, I'm a human being, you're a human being too, so that's not always so easy. In your own time, reflect back at the past couple of years. Saturn first went into Pisces in March of 2023. It left on May 24th of 2025. And then it came back on September 1st. So apart from June and July and August, we've been in this deeper spiritual, esoteric, mystical, why am I here? What is the meaning and purpose of my life work with Saturn and Pisces? And I think one of the more heartbreaking things about Saturn and Pisces is trying to make sense of everything that's going on. How do you come to peace, which is Pisces? Pisces is peace, it's unity, it's the return, it's the preparation from one stage of life to the next. How do you make peace? How do you make sense with what's happening? Because that's, I think, the hardest thing to really transcend and to overcome. Ultimately, Saturn represents our priority. So our priority is Pisces. It's still talking to the Virgo side of the sky. We still have that Virgo solar eclipse. So we need to find the balance, because Virgo Pisces is to try to find the balance between heaven, Pisces, and earth, meaning our ambitions. I don't mean material ambitions. I mean our sort of ambitions for ourselves, our wishes and wants and desires for a better world, our need to go beyond ourselves, but also like reality, Virgo. Virgo will always say to Pisces, that sounds great, Pisces, but how are we going to make this happen? What, give me some steps, give me some plans. Whereas Pisces will say to Virgo, you need to loosen up. You need to, open up your intuition. You need to go beyond the mind, because that's where Virgo can sometimes get trapped. So we're all going to be doing a dance, and then depending on where Virgo Pisces is in your astrology, it's going to be either a bigger, let's say, chapter of your life, or not, perhaps not as big a chapter of your life. This eclipse again will be on Sunday, the 21st of September. For those that are in Asia and Australia and New Zealand, it will be on the 22nd. That will be Monday. For me, because I am on the East Coast of the United States, it will be at 3:54 p.m. Eastern. Completely related, unrelated. Just my personal belief. You don't have to necessarily, if you don't believe this is fine. Don't look at the eclipse. It's a really strong energy. Things are weird. I remember the eclipse that we had on the East Coast of the United States in April of 2024. And I had to take my dog out, and I just, because I'm, very psychically sensitive, and I was like, this is some really strange energy. So you do you, of course. So if Virgo and Pisces is going to be our priority for the next 6 months, it's for us to look back at, say, the eclipses. There was a lunar eclipse in Virgo in March of 2025. There was a lunar eclipse in Pisces in September of 2024. They are threading a larger narrative, and this solar eclipse may pass without much fanfare. That's great. That's fine. It is for us to look what happens when we have 3 months after the eclipse. So this will be December, and that will take us 3 months before the next eclipse. We will also have Mars. It will get to around 29 degrees of Sagittarius. This will be in the middle of December, I believe, the first couple of weeks of December. So Mars will be at 29 degrees of Sag. It will be square the Saturn will be in Pisces. So December is also a month to look at. It's just to observe, it's to listen to our intuition. It's not to necessarily expect anything, but it's to know that there's an intersection with the energy that will come about in December. What else is going on this week? Like I said, strange energy typically around the eclipses. Things are coming in and out of our lives. We do have 2 planets changing signs this week. We have Mercury. It will go into Libra on the 18th. So that's Thursday. Before it goes into Libra, it will make an opposition to Saturn. So I would just sort of circle in your mind. I'll circle Wednesday, because when we have Mercury opposite Saturn, and Mercury does rule the eclipse, we might see something about the eclipse on Wednesday. Typically, Virgo and Mercury opposite Saturn, you have to make a commitment. You need to get real. You need to say yes, or you need to draw a boundary or a border. It's about making the right decisions, whatever those may be for you. But again, just to sort of circle that Wednesday. When Mercury changes signs on Thursday, because Mercury rules Virgo season and it rules the eclipse, it's going to start to bring the energy of the eclipse in Virgo season into the sign of Libra. At the time of the eclipse, I think Mercury is at 5 degrees of Libra. It's important to understand that the eclipse is also directly connecting to the sign that's next to it. So if you have strong placements in the early degrees of Libra, you might receive the energy of the eclipse when you're thinking, wait a second, but I'm not a Virgo, because Mercury is bringing the energy of the eclipse over to Libra. Libra is ruled by Venus, so it says that there's something in the next 6 months that also is about relationships. It's not just your relationships, meaning the people that are in your life, your intimate relationships, your friends, your connections. It's how you connect with people, how you relate and socialize, how you see somebody perhaps as another human being, for example. So Libra, its MO typically is negotiation. Let's figure out a way that works for everybody. So there may be personal and collective events within the sort of frame of the next 6 months where we need to figure out, well, how do we work for everybody? How does this work out? How do we negotiate and compromise? And Libra, hopefully, is peace. It's not to sort of overpromise, but it does mean that Libra is also a big focal point over the next 6 months. When we get into next week, we will be in Libra season. We have Mars going into Scorpio, so we have those things to talk about. So we've just got a lot of things going on in September. On a completely different note, I am teaching a weekend intensive in what's called energetic sciences, which is the study of energy and consciousness and its impact on something called the weft, which is the universal fabric that connects everyone and everything. And this will be, again, a weekend intensive. It's, for me, when I did it 10 years ago, it was so profound that I learned to be able to teach it myself. I am co-teaching the class. It will be online October 4th and 5th, but this is to give you very practical, very Virgo tools to be able to feel energy, connect to energy, shift your consciousness, and to be able to feel this universal fabric that we are all connected to, something called the weft. So the link is in the show notes. You can also go to my website, empoweringastrology.com. It will be hosted by another platform called Mercia Academy. They are in Switzerland. I've done a couple of introductions, free introductions. I think I'm going to try to do one this weekend. Just been so much going on, but stay tuned. So I hope you can join me. So let's get into things, because like I said, we got a lot going on. Let's start with Aries. Aries. So how are you doing, Aries? You had a pretty intense square between Mars and Jupiter last week. It really was pushing and pulling at sort of the bigger themes in your life, relationships, you, belief, faith, truth, meaning what do you stand for? What do you think is true? That energy is still with you. You do have the Mars Chiron opposition this week. What that means is for you to just pay attention to the deeper themes and emotions that are coming up, because they're actually connected to something much deeper within you. Then there's this eclipse, and for you, Aries, I said this last week, I believe, but you had 3 months, June and July and August, with Saturn in your sign. That was to give you sort of a sign that you are sort of moving into a very different chapter of your life. Now, before that chapter can begin, you have something that you need to wrap up. The rough idea, I realize that we're all different people, but the rough idea is that the time that you've been in from 2023 until now has been this period of coming to the end of a great chapter of your life. It's been a need to go within. It's been a need to release the things that you're still holding on to. It's like you have been going through the boxes of your life and you're like, why am I still holding on to this stuff? You need, I know I shouldn't say you need, but it is, let's say, ideal to clear space, whether that is physical space, whether that is emotional space, whether that's spiritual space, because it is to prepare you for this next big chapter that begins when Saturn gets back into Aries in February of 2026. You had a lunar eclipse in your 12th. It's to really sit with what were the themes that were coming up about endings, letting go, peace, spirituality, meaning and purpose in life. Pisces for you. And then also this solar eclipse in Virgo. This will mean different things to Aries. On a larger level for Aries, your priority for the next 6 months is to sort of get your act together. Virgo energy is about showing up on time, trying to not just be perfect, but to refine yourself, to reach towards a higher standard of yourself, to make things more perfect or more refined, to pay attention to the details. Now that might be in your day-to-day life, that might be in health and wellness, that might be in work, that might be in so how you show up in your personal life. It's for you to see how that works for you. Virgo in the 6, it's the operations. You need the operations of your life need to run smoothly. And if they're not running smoothly, what needs to change? Because you have eclipses on the other side of the sky, and Pisces saying something needs to go. It could be a belief, it could be something that's taking away from your time, it could be an attachment, it could be an addiction. Something is to let it go so that you can make space for whatever needs to come into your life. But this is a very real world eclipse for the next 6 months. It's like, you wake up, you drink your green juice, or you eat your Wheaties, or you go for a walk, or you go to the gym, you quit smoking, you do this. That's the kind of energy that's going to be with you for the next 6 months. And to do that in a way that feels relevant and real and true for your life. The eclipse will touch on relationships, so something about relationships is also shifting, even if it's old patterns and how you connect and relate to other people. Taurus. So Venus is your planet. So right now it's wrapping up its time in Leo, which is something called your 4th. It's home, it's family, it's roots, foundation. And then it's going to go into Virgo on the 19th. And for I think it's 4 weeks, the energy of your sign points towards the 5th, which represents creativity, self-expression, joy, fun, passion. Not typically words that we would associate with the energy and archetype of Virgo, but it's a time to reconnect with what you love, the things that light you up and give you joy. If you love details, if you love helping people, if you love getting into some sort of craft that you're really into, I don't mean crafting, I mean something that you really put a lot of precision and focus on. That's what I mean by craft. Then perhaps that's how the energy is really showing up. Then there is this solar eclipse. The solar eclipse says your 5th will be a priority and focal point for the next 6 months. Now, this is going to mean different things to different Tauruses. The 5th can mean for one Taurus that, it's a really creative time for the next 6 months. For another Taurus, it's getting into themes about identity. Who are you? How do you prioritize the things that really nourish who you are and express who you are? For some Tauruses, it could be about personality and learning to express yourself more. For other Tauruses, it could be about children and maybe even starting a family or even pregnancy. I realize that's not going to be relevant for everybody, but this is also the space that can talk about pregnancy. Bare minimum, Taurus, really get back to yourself over the next 6 months. We're all different people. That statement is going to ring differently with each and every Taurus. If you have forgotten yourself, then the eclipse is saying that you need to prioritize yourself for the next 6 months. You also have the Saturn opposition, which is in your 11th. And so this is also a time to prioritize the world, your friends, your community, your sense of belonging, your sense of connection to the greater whole, a social issue and a social cause. Both Virgo and Pisces are very service-oriented. And that could be a space in which you get to do something that you love and you get to share your talents, gifts, and abilities with the world. Gemini. Gemini. So Mercury is your planet, and Mercury is coming to the end of its time in Virgo. So over the past, I think it's been the past few weeks, Mercury, yeah, since the second of September, past couple of weeks. Since the 2nd of September, Mercury has been in what's called your fourth sign: home, family, roots, foundation. It's a bit of a quick journey, because at this point Mercury is beginning to pick up speed in its orbit, and it's just been a time for you to focus on your home, focus on your family. For example, when Mercury goes into Libra on the 18th, so this week, it also brings the energy into something called your fifth. So on one hand, you've got this solar eclipse on the 21st, 22nd that's in your sign of home and family. That area of your life is going to be a priority for the next 6 months. It may mean that there's a move. It may mean that you need to really focus on home and family as the physicality of home and family, or the address that you live in, or more of, let's say, like the philosophical side of home and family, and maybe even the stuff that's about past. With the energy of the eclipse pointing towards the fifth, there is also something about self-identity, who you are, how you express who you are. Maybe there could be a little bit of tension between who you are versus maybe perhaps who your family thinks you should be, or some sort of legacy from the past, for example. Or maybe, and I realize this is not relevant for everybody, but maybe it's something about children and starting a family and really putting down roots. Again, that's not going to be relevant for everybody. But this eclipse is opposite Saturn. It's a pretty big deal eclipse for you, Gemini. You still have Uranus and Gemini until November. You're in this sort of generally this new big time in your life. And with the opposition to Saturn, it says that over the next 6 months, you need to really get your stuff in order, whatever that means to you. Saturn in your 10th talks about career. So one Gemini, it needs to sort of figure out, what do you want to be when you grow up? For another Gemini, it's like, I really need to build my career. Now, you've had Saturn in your 10th since 2023, since March of 2023. What's been the narrative for you? Because the next 5 months is really trying to bring something to a conclusion, and perhaps even something to a close. So you sort of have these competing areas over the next 6 months: home, family, the past, parents, of your living situation, your household, but also your career, your responsibilities, your duties. Now, competing doesn't mean that it's a fight. It just means that you're trying to find the balance between these two big areas of your life. Now, the 4th and the 10th, this is a little bit of some astrology math, but the 4th and the 10th, these are 2 of the 4 pillars of your life. The other 2 pillars are you and relationships. So there's something about this eclipse that's really talking about a new stage and chapter of your life where you are stepping into potentially a greater role. More is being asked of you. But that might mean that with the energy going towards the 5th, it's also bringing up questions about who you are, your talents, your gifts, your abilities, how you express who you are, and maybe how you even prioritize the things that light you up and give you joy and give you passion. Cancer. Sorry, it's hot here. Cancer. So the moon is your planet, and the moon this week, it's going to be making a solar eclipse. So typically Cancers, you feel things more strongly because you're ruled by the moon. Right now, as I record this, the moon is in Cancer. So you're having sort of your personal reset for each month when the moon comes back to your sign. But this is preparing you for the solar eclipse that's going to come in not a few days, by the end of the week, in something called your 3rd. The 3rd represents your voice, your communication, how you think and listen and learn. It's education, it's the past, it's memories, it's because it's bringing the energy of the moon and the sun. It could be you're starting a manuscript, you're starting classes, maybe you need to express yourself more, maybe you need to look at your choices, because the 3rd is also our ability to really weigh our options and hopefully make the best choices. Sorry, I'm just doing my astrology math. Yes. So with this eclipse, it's opposite Saturn. And Saturn is going to be in something called your ninth. Now, to be fair, Saturn has been in your ninth since March 2023. Both Virgo and Pisces start to fall along very philosophical places in your life. Like, what do you believe in? What do you stand for? What do you think is true? Like, how do you educate yourself? How do you learn about things? Do you get stuck in your beliefs, or are you open from different points of view? So with Saturn in your ninth, you're coming to the conclusion, because this will be 5 more months of Saturn in your ninth, and then we have a 6-month chapter in total, where Saturn has been really looking at philosophical, it could be spiritual, it could be religious, it really depends on the person, sort of like this idea of worldview. For some Cancers, the last 6 months, the last 2.5 years have been really trying to open up your eyes about the world. Maybe you've been traveling more, maybe you've been educating yourself more about the world, for example. For some Cancers, it's been, again, more philosophical, maybe even getting into spiritual leanings. And I think with Saturn there and the eclipse in the third, there's something for Cancer over the next 6 months to really lean into or feel into. How are you expressing yourself? Are people hearing you and listening to you? For some Cancers, you need to spend the next 6 months teaching something. It's maybe something that you've really worked to learn, and now it's time to share. For some Cancers, it's about a manuscript. For some Cancers, it's about taking classes. For some Cancers, it's about travel. It's for you to start to pick up the thread, because this has already been a story that's been well present, 2023, 2024, but the next 6 months are really starting to bring something to a conclusion. Leo, so the sun is your planet, and it is Virgo season. So Virgo season means that it's a time for you to focus on money, income, material stability, and security. Virgo is something called your second sign. It is a space for you to really find a sense of anchoring. I know the second is more about our material lives, but it's not to be materialistic. It's just to remind us that we all need a roof over our head. We need to make sure the bills are paid. We need to make sure we have enough food. I should hope. It seems like a luxury for a lot of people. But this is a space for you to also figure out, what do you really value? That could be literally like, where are you putting your money? Do you really need to spend it on this? Is it truly of a value to you? Or is it more philosophical? What truly is of value and importance to you? But overall, this is a very, let's say, nuts and bolts eclipse for you. It's getting very much into the physicality, stability, security. Do you have enough side of life? The energy of the eclipse does point over towards the third. It could be something about needing to weigh your options, open up to new perspectives, move and travel, and maybe there's going to be a lot of movement and perhaps even some busyness over the next 6 months. This eclipse is opposite Saturn, and Saturn is in something called your 8th. Now this is, over the next 5 months, you are coming to the conclusion of a pretty heavy duty transit. Saturn, I know people are saying I'm frozen, but I'm still here and still recording, thankfully. Saturn is in your 8th, and it's sort of representing this time, Leo, where you have to really take a hard look at yourself. It's not easy to have Saturn traveling in the 8th, because the work is inner. It's the sort of the dismantling of the old self, or dismantling of the ego, so that something else can emerge during this time. Sit with what's coming up. It might mean to face your fears. I know that's a strong thing to say, but sometimes we have to face our fears. We need to sort of look at what we haven't been wanting to look at. For some Leos, it's the inner work. It's more about, it's psychological. You need to really clear some space that's preparing you for the next big chapter of your life. For some Leos, it's about healing. For some Leos, it's about intimacy, trust, vulnerability, power, relationship power. So that said, sorry, I don't know why it's freezing for some of you all, but it's a big eclipse. It's hitting on the material side of your life, but on a deeper level, it's getting into your unconscious and the things that really need to shift that helps you grow and mature in your life. There we go. Virgo. Happy birthday, Virgo. I know that we are in the last few days of Virgo season. This is a big deal eclipse. Now, if your birthday is the 19th, the 20th, the 21st, the 22nd, it's a powerful new year for you. One that is on some levels capitalizing on a story that's already been present with you the last couple of years. To have an eclipse, it says that it's a year of powerful new beginnings. Even if it's not your birthday, it's sort of these new beginnings are with you and with your sign for the next 6 months or beyond. So that said, what are you feeling, Virgo? What's coming up for you? Because it's a dynamic time in your astrology. It's perhaps a dynamic time for you to be alive. And these eclipses are really playing across the axis in your life that's about you and about other people. Other people can literally mean your relationships, the people in your life. It could also mean about your intimate relationships, for example. So there is this dynamic energy that's happening, and it's for you, Virgo, in your own time to go back to, say, 2023 and 2024, because since March of 2023, Saturn has been in Pisces, your relationship sign. Wherever Saturn is, that area is your priority. It's your top line priority. And your top line priority for the past 2 years has been relationships. Now, of course, it's going to mean different things to different Virgos. It is to really look at relationships as an entity, like how do you connect, how do you relate, how do you socialize, are things equitable, do you overgive, do you under-receive? These are just examples. Are you ready with Saturn in this part of your life to take the next step up in a relationship? It could be make a commitment to somebody, it could mean move in with a partner, for example, or it could mean to end a relationship. The energy of this eclipse is also pointing towards money, income, material stability, and security. Now, that could be literally, let's say, money over the next 6 months. You're making investments, you're buying property with a partner, you're arguing with your partner about money, or you're really looking to create more stability and security in relationships. And that can include knowing your value and worth. But that said, it is a turning point for you, a turning point that really is going to, I think that's the thing about astrology, it shows itself in hindsight. And for all signs, but more so for you, as we get to, let's say, December, when we get 3 months after this eclipse, December is a really important month for you to start to see what this new time is about. Libra, it's almost your season, but before we can get to your season, we got to get through some pretty big deal astrology. Now, you had eclipses in Libra and Aries over the past couple of years, and so that really talked about this time of new beginnings, new directions, perhaps even personal events in your life. The energy with these eclipses have started to shift towards something called your 12th and your 6th. The 6th and the 12th, on the 6th is like our real world life. It's our duties, our responsibilities, it's our health, it's our wellness, it's our work, it's the things that we have to do. The 12th is our spirituality. It takes us beyond this world. But I think both signs really play into each other. This desire to really become a better version of yourself, to really find a place in the world where you can feel like you're doing something of meaning and purpose. Maybe even it's to find meaning and purpose in your life. With this solar eclipse in Virgo, it says that one of your main priorities for the next 6 months is your 12th. The 12th represents the end of your personal astrology. It's a space that goes beyond the physical plane, which is ironic because we were talking about Virgo, and Virgo is an earth sign. But it says that over the next 6 months, and this is going to be different for each Libra, it is to contemplate what is it that we're all connected to. I realize that this is a big existential question. I don't have the answers. It's about you finding your own answers about what you feel we're all connected to or not. Because the role of the 12th is, on one hand, for us to find our unity, for us to find our spirituality. But if we bring our ego into the 12th, that's where we feel the sense of loss and separation and isolation. So the 12th is saying, how do you prioritize your spirit and your soul over the next 6 months? What is your meaning and purpose in life? And with the opposition to Saturn, Saturn is on the other side of the sky that's saying it's time to make something real. If you have a belief, or you want to live your life in a certain way, or if you want to bring more meaning and purpose into your day-to-day life, it is to show up in the day-to-day life. So there's something about changing your day-to-day life, that's your other priorities, that you have the Saturn opposition. Saturn's in your 6th, to change your schedule, to change your operations, for you to change how you show up, for you to really find a sense of precision and attentiveness to these areas of your life, your physical life and your emotional, spiritual life. The energy of this eclipse is pointing towards Libra. You are Libra rising, and it says that there is something in this eclipse that's also about you taking the lead, about you standing on your own 2 feet, and perhaps even about new beginnings. Scorpio. So Mars is your planet, and Mars is coming up to the end of its time in Libra. So Libra has been your, let's say, 5-6 week period. This is going to take you all the way up to the 22nd of September. So Monday, we will talk about this on Monday, but Mars will go into Scorpio. Every 2 years, Mars comes back to your sign. It represents the culmination of a personal cycle. And when Mars gets into Scorpio, it's new beginnings. But before those new beginnings can happen, you are in this period that took you from the beginning of September all the way, that's not right, beginning of August? Yeah, beginning of August 8th, all the way to September 22nd, where it is about endings. Endings mean different things to different Scorpios. It is to clear space. It is to release. It is to rest. It is to go within. It is to listen to your own intuition, for example. It's hard to push forward when Mars is in the 12th. It's like things are coming to their conclusion. Things are ending. They're not beginning. So if you sort of feel frustrated, see how you feel, especially when Mars gets a Scorpio starting on the 22nd. The energy of this eclipse is falling along something called your 11th. Virgo is your 11th sign, and Pisces, which is your 5th. The 11th, it's the part of our astrology that really begins to point us towards the future, point us to something outside of ourselves, and to even point us towards humanity and the collective. And so this is a space that over the next 6 months is going to be your priority. Your community, your social issues and social causes, your sense of belonging, your friends, your sense of social connection on a larger level, your alliances. And the 11th is to really get out into the world in some way. The 9th, the 10th, and the 11th houses in astrology, a little bit technical stuff. They're the most public parts of our astrology. It is to be seen, whatever that means to you, to be seen on some level. This is not an eclipse in your home environment. It is an eclipse that takes you out into the world. This eclipse is opposite Saturn in your 5th, the space that talks about who you are, your talents, your gifts, your abilities. And this eclipse is really saying to you that it's time for you to take yourself seriously. It is a priority for you. And even if you are volunteering more, or getting involved in social issues and causes, or getting involved in the community, don't forget about you. Don't forget about what you have to contribute, for example. But there is a push and pull in this eclipse between the self, identity, which is the 5th, but also the collective and the greater whole, which is the 11th. And with the energy of the solar eclipse pointing towards your 12th, it is going to get into deeper spiritual themes. Why am I here? What is this all for? And maybe trying to find the balance between your worldly life, but also whatever you feel connected to beyond this world. Sagittarius. Sagittarius got a lot of big astrology going on in your chart at the moment. You have, number one, you have Jupiter still in Cancer. It's going to be in Cancer until July of 2026. So the energy of your sign is, sorry, I'm like fixing my hair. The energy of your sign is pointing towards something called your 8th. On one hand, Jupiter in Cancer gets into emotions. It's family, it's past, it's memories, it's connection, it's intimacy. And in the 8th, it might be bringing up a lot of deep emotions, for example. The 8th is typically a space that happens behind closed doors. It's where we have to face ourselves, or it's within a relationship. It's the things that happen in private. It can also talk about legacies and the past. And that said, this eclipse, because it's a really big eclipse, it's in something called your 10th. Over the next 6 months, your priority is, or one of your main priorities is your career. It is both the title after your name, the role that you play in this world, your duties and responsibilities, your sense of personal excellence, your sense of accountability, and it's really pushing you out into your public life. Now, this is, I don't have to say this, but I'm just sort of saying this to say this. Sometimes we have an eclipse in this space. If we are not doing what we should be doing, it comes to light. So make sure you're doing what you should be doing. That said, you just had a lunar eclipse in your 4th, home, family, roots, foundation. Now, even if you didn't see anything in that part of your life around the 7th, which is the 7th is when we have the lunar eclipse, these will be major focuses and priorities for the next 6 months. So it says, in addition to career, family is a priority, home is a priority, your living situation. It could be a move, it could be something with a parent, it could be starting a family. It really depends on who you are and what's going on in your life. My joke a couple weeks ago was like Taylor Swift got engaged. So she, with these eclipses, is beginning to start a very different chapter of her life. I don't know her. Hi, Taylor, if you're watching. But this is just a celebrity example. That said, because the 4th and the 10th are what are called 2 of the 4 pillars of your life, things are shifting on their axis right now. And when you get to the end of this period, which takes you roughly into February of 2026, you will see something has shifted. You had a lunar eclipse in Virgo in March of 2025. You had a lunar eclipse in Pisces in September of 2024. It's for you to connect the dots the best that you can, to start to see what is this bigger story that's really coming to the forefront in your life. The solar eclipse points towards your 11th. This isn't just about career. It's about your connection to either colleagues or community, or getting involved in groups, or perhaps even getting involved in a social issue or social cause. The 9th, the 10th, and the 11th, so the eclipse is in your 10th, and the energy of the eclipse points towards your 11th. These are the most public parts of your astrology. So it's really a lot about your worldly life at this time, but I think with Saturn down in your 4th, it says don't forget about your roots, your foundations, and the things that actually support and nourish you. Capricorn, so Saturn is your planet, and since September 1st, Saturn has been back in Pisces. It is to continue to check and to feel into what that means for you, because June and July and August, they were a different time. You had Saturn in Aries. Aries is fire. Aries is the first sign of the zodiac, but Pisces is about endings. It's the last sign of the zodiac. It's water, it's emotion. It's not personal emotions, it's collective emotions. It's feeling like you belong to something, for example. Saturn back in this space, and you had an eclipse in this space back on September 7th, is really putting the priority and the spotlight for the next 6 months on either education, so you're taking more classes, or perhaps you're teaching those classes, Or maybe it's about writing, maybe it's about sharing a manuscript, maybe it's about travel, maybe it's about movement. But this space, we don't always think of it like this, but this space also opens us up to the power of choice. And one of the deeper messages behind Saturn's time in your third since 2023 is to be the master of your choices, to make the best possible choices in your life. And you're like, of course I'm making the best possible choices. I'm a Capricorn. But Saturn, even though you are ruled by Saturn, Saturn always talks about the deeper karmic work. And so it's not to be in your blind spots about, choices. And so maybe you have felt that it could either be this way or that way, a yes or a no, a go forward, a go, here. And so, especially over the next 5 to 6 months, you're going to be really weighing your options, because the choices that you make and that really cement things are going to really set you up for the next big chapter of your life. That said, this solar eclipse is in something called your ninth. The ninth is a space that really helps us to open up to the world, to really open up our eyes, to make our world bigger, to want more, to travel, to explore, to get a degree, but also matters of faith. The next 6 months will mean different things to different Capricorns. It could be literally about faith. Do I have faith in myself? Do I have faith in the world? Do I have faith in something beyond this world? And that could be a theme over the next 6 months. For some Capricorns, it's more philosophical. I need to really, stand behind my beliefs, or get very clear about what I feel is right and what I feel is wrong. For some Capricorns, especially with the energy of Saturn in the third, it's more about the education. That's a big focus and priority for you for the next 6 months. And maybe that includes getting some sort of degree or some sort of certificate, the specialized study. For some Capricorns, it's about travel. It's a lot of movement and travel over the next 6 months, seeing the world. And maybe on some level, like, that travel is to help you to see things beyond yourself. But it is a big time, and this eclipse is opposite you. And with the energy of this eclipse pointing towards your 10th of career, it's about you, it's about your beliefs, it's about the role that you play in the world. And I think on some level you are being tapped in your own Capricorn way to step into some sort of higher role over the next 6 months. Aquarius, so Saturn is your planet, and Saturn moves so slowly, so it's just at this point, because Saturn has been back in Pisces for the last let's say 2 weeks, to really lean and feel into what this has meant for you over the last 2 weeks. Saturn, as your ruler, says, and wherever Saturn is, it's not just about you, it's about where your focus and priority is. And your focus and priority, I know I've said this a lot over the past couple of years, but your focus and priority, because you have these very distinct 2 to 3 year chapters in your life, has been about money, income, material stability, and security. You could have some Aquariuses where it's about buying property or really creating like material assets at this time, or it could be a time where Aquarius, it's a little bit more philosophical. It's like, is this really truly important to me? Do I want to put my money this over here, or do I want to spend my money this way, or do I even truly value that? Or it could even be self-worth and value. When Saturn goes through the space, it's ultimately a 3-year time frame. It is to find security and stability in your life. And I think on some level, especially now that Pluto is in Aquarius, a lot of things are shifting in Aquarius's astrology. And even the past 6 years, when Uranus was in your 4th, a lot of things were shifting and moving. And I think Saturn on some level was trying to tell you the past 2 years, find your anchor point, find your grounding, because a lot of things are moving and changing in your life. Now, we always forget that Aquarius is a fixed sign, meaning it doesn't want change. It wants to keep things the same, but that's not been on your, let's say, your docket the past couple of years, past 6, 7 years. You just had a lunar eclipse in this space, so maybe it's very much about money and income, spending, assets, properties, resources at this time. And then it's also this solar eclipse that's in something called your 8th. Over the next 6 months, the eighth is your priority. It's one of your priorities. I know if you know a little bit about astrology, you're going to be like, oh my God, why is the eighth my priority? Because the eighth is a space where we have to go and face ourselves. It's where we see ourselves for who we truly are. It's where the lowercase s self can sort of reveal and open up so it can become the higher s self in the ninth. Your emotional health is your priority for the next 6 months. Maybe that's going to be 100% true for you, Aquarius. Maybe it's something else. Maybe that means individual work. Maybe that means sitting down with somebody. Maybe that means like doing some deep dive trauma work or whatever it is. For some Aquariuses, the priority is assets, finance, wealth, really looking at the things that you own, perhaps the things that you own with a partner, the sort of resources that you can call upon. Maybe you really want to get your 401k in order over the next 6 months. Maybe you're like, no, I want to put my money in crypto or gold or whatever. Like, everybody's different. It's just to really look at what means security and stability for you. Is it monetary? Well, on some level, it has to be. We're physical beings. Is it emotional? Well, we're also emotional beings too. But ultimately, the material and even the emotional is not the end of the zodiac. The spiritual is the end of the zodiac. And I think that's where the Pisces side of things is really trying to ask you, like, what do you truly value? Last sign of zodiac, Pisces. Pisces, just like, let's check in, Pisces. How are you doing? Because you just had a lunar eclipse in your sign on September 7th, and you will have a solar eclipse in your relationship sign on September 21st, 22nd, depending on where you are in the world. It is a big time in your astrology. You can talk to your Sagittarius, you can talk to your Geminis, you can talk to your Virgos, because they are in a very similar but different boat to you. When you have an eclipse in your sign, which again you did on September 7th, it's a dynamic time in your life. Things are happening. Even if you're like, Katie, nothing's happening, it is to see how things begin to unfold and progress over the next 3 months, especially as we get into December. Saturn is back in Pisces, has been in Pisces for the last 2 weeks, and it will be there for the next 5 weeks, not 5 weeks, 5 months. So you are wrapping up some sort of personal chapter, personal milestone, personal work, because Saturn's will take 30 years to come back to Pisces. I know you're thinking, hallelujah. With Saturn talking to, in opposition to this solar eclipse that we're having on, I'm sorry, my brain, Pisces, the 21st and 22nd of this week, the major priority and focus for the next 6 months is relationship. Now, that means different things to different priorities, to different Pisces. And over the next 6 months, for some Pisces, this means to really either start a relationship, or for an existing relationship to sort of step into a new phase or chapter. It could be a move, the birth of a baby. It could be some sort of shift and change in your life. If it's not an intimate relationship, it could be just relationships as a whole. With Saturn and Pisces the past 2 years, 2.5 years, you've had to really find yourself. You've had to learn to stand on your own 2 feet. So with relationships also being a focal point, it's to find the balance between you and other people. If you are in a relationship, it's not to lose yourself. It's to sort of advocate for your wants, your needs, and your desires. But with this eclipse, with this solar eclipse opposite Saturn and Pisces, in a way, you are the focal point and priority for the next 6 months. More is going to be asked of you, more responsibilities, more duties. I know you're like, I don't want this, Katie. I wish, I have to sort of do my due diligence to Saturn, because Saturn is saying to you, it's time to be precise. It's time to be on time. It's time to really follow through. It's time to be true to our commitments and what we said we would do. So on some level, for all Pisces and all the mutable signs, it's like getting your stuff together over the next 6 months, knowing that Saturn is wrapping up its time in Pisces and that something is really trying to come to its conclusion. The energy of this eclipse points towards your 8th, and so it's also pulling the energy of the sign into a space that talks about intimacy, trust, vulnerability, but also the importance of transformation. So something may need to transform, a relationship may need to transform, you may need to transform, but it's a big eclipse that's asking a lot from you over the next 6 months. Wow, so there you go. That is your look at the astrology of this week, September 15th. I don't, my brain's in retrograde. I'm so sorry, guys. It's eclipse vibes. September 15th through 21st, 2025. So I know some of you said it was glitching. We will find out when we see the end product, but it is a big week. It is to find your grounding. It is to connect to yourself, connect to your intuition. I said this in my newsletter, but I'm having a lot of big insights, and I just think that sort of the ethers, the sort of psychic material is just very charged at the moment, and I think it's important to listen to your intuition, to listen to your dreams, because maybe that's where you're hearing that Pisces side of things. But it is an eclipse in Virgo, so it's to really find your anchor, it's to find your grounding, and to find your desire to make your life better, whatever that means to you. So you can follow me online at empoweringastrology.com. I'm on Facebook, I'm on Instagram, I'm on Spotify, I'm on YouTube, and I will see you all next week. You can book a consultation with me so we can see how this is unfolding in your own personal astrology. So until then, take care. Bye-bye.